In today's video, we are here to talk about none other than Valkyrie Elysium, which released on the PlayStation 5 in fall of 2022. Now, for me personally, this game was on my radar, but I totally understand due to all the stuff that came out last year, how this could have been overlooked. While I did play the original Valkyrie Profile game, it's not a series that I've kept up with over the years, so I didn't play any other entries, so I'm going to have this unique experience as opposed to most people, which I'm sure a lot of people are either familiar with it and have played a couple of games, or they haven't played any and they're just jumping into it fresh. So maybe I'm somewhere in the middle of that and I can provide context and perspective on the things that I like and maybe the things that I don't like. But if you are new here, I talk about anime news, I talk about gaming news, we do reviews on both. I also occasionally talk about conventions. So if any of that sounds remotely interesting to you, consider subscribing. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's jump right into the video. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I am Ryofu, and you are watching the Gaming Harbinger. So Square Enix released this game to mixed reviews. So full disclosure, I usually don't read, watch any reviews on games that I plan on reviewing myself. And the reason why is because I don't want to be influenced by other people's ideas. I want my ideas and thoughts to be my own. And then after the fact, I can go, oh, I didn't think of it like that. Maybe that's what they meant. And I think just us as human beings, we do that and we don't even notice we're doing it. So I wanted my ideas to be my own. So I am pretty good most of the time doing that. So with that being said, I am saying all this to say, yeah, this is one of those rare occasions where I'm playing the game, I'm enjoying it, and then I'm seeing the reviews and I'm like, oh, so I guess this isn't as good as I thought it was. I was kind of enjoying it. So I can see if you only put a few hours into this game why you might drop it. For me, it took getting more abilities in order for the game to get fun. It's not a very challenging game, but I love zipping around, slashing through enemies, my comrades casting spells, and just absolute chaos ensuing on screen. But it wasn't until I was at the end of the second chapter that I was intrigued. Valkyrie Elysium is about you playing as a Valkyrie named Maria that follows the commands of Odin. And yes, we are talking about Odin from Norse mythology. Odin orders you to purify souls to help restore Midgard. He also wants you to gather lost weapons and deceased warriors who can assist you in your cause. These warriors are called Einherjar, and they assist you briefly during combat. The thing is that you must find these spirits, and they are not always eager to join you. While you are doing this, you are learning about the Einherjar's previous life. This section is one thing I do remember about the first game. Except in the first game, you are inviting warriors left and right, all the while sitting through these tragic stories. This was definitely a part of the game that I really enjoyed. That shouldn't surprise you. Now, there is something kind of messed up about having a hard life, dying, and then to be greeted with, hey, it sucks the way you died, but do you think you can help me fight a war amongst the gods? And let's just be honest, that does not sound enticing one bit. Who would sign up for that? Nobody. But the thing is, this is probably the part of Valkyrie Profile that I found the most compelling. In Valkyrie Profile, you got to befriend and learn about so many different characters, and you could choose which ones you wanted to fight with you. In this new game, you are limited to only 4 Einherjar. While this is a very dismal number in comparison to the original that I played, the characters you get to know are interesting enough. This is definitely one of those games that make use of characters talking amongst each other when there is no combat happening. I really enjoyed the banter between characters similar to a Tales game. This is an excellent use of time since this is like a 20 to 25 hour-ish game. But of course, it can be shorter if you skip some of the side quests. So for those of you that are relatively new to the channel, if I'm playing a Japanese game, 9 times out of 10, I will play it in Japanese if that track language exists. Now, I will say this, probably the exception is a Persona game, and it's because I guess the very first Persona game I ever played, it was in English, so I've always just kind of stuck with that. But a lot of Japanese games, if I can play it in Japanese, I'll play it in Japanese. So with that being said, this was one of those games where there's moments where there's no subtitles, but your character's shouting at enemies, or it might have just killed a bunch of enemies and then they make a statement. But I wanted to know what she was saying in those moments, so I decided to switch it back to English, and I was pleasantly surprised. I guess they got a bunch of Brit voice actors to do all the characters, and they do a really good job, and I really enjoyed the voice acting in this game. So I will say, when the Valkyrie is walking around and she kills stuff, she can get a little culty with her language. It's kind of hilarious, to be honest with you.
Your purification is at hand.
I think the art style more than gets the job done, but the game has gotten some criticism for its bland buildings and empty hallways. What I'm about to say is not something the average consumer would say, so bear with me. This is not Final Fantasy XVI. This is not a Bethesda game. This is a game that was made with a small budget in mind. Valkyrie Profile sold around 700,000 in the PS1 days, which is a good number back then. But I don't think they made this game thinking it was going to hit the million mark. This partially explains the departure in gameplay style. In fact, I think that's what they were going for. They wanted to have a more action-y type game that maybe it would get more attention. But anyways, my second point is that yes, the colors might appear to be a little muted. This probably comes off as something that isn't really pushing the limits of the PlayStation 5, but I think some of that might have been sacrificed for what happens on screen. We are talking multiple enemies attacking. 3 in Harrier on screen all at the same time doing different attacks. And when everyone is casting spells, and then you counter or parry an enemy on screen, the game just looks insane with Maria zipping around. I mean, it looks pretty cool. I think it looks cool. Now, I will say this, I've mentioned this multiple times on the channel, but presently with the PlayStation 5, I'm only pushing 1080p, so this game does look a little sharper and a little prettier, but this is still a good indication of all the stuff that's happening on screen, so I mean, you can see that here now. It's moments like this when you go, oh, now I know why parts of the game looks quite bare. I understand that this game is not going to blow anyone away graphically, but I would also say that this should be viewed as a AA game and not a AAA game. I always find it strange that people are so open-minded when it comes to indies, but anything bigger than that has to look like God of War. I never understood this. It's like the expectations quadruple for some reason. Honestly, my only real criticism of the graphics are the lack of customization. The past 4 years I have gotten quite used to customizing my graphics, but I get it. Anything bumping up the graphics would have really went bad in these hectic scenes. As far as music goes, it doesn't get much better than this. This music is what you would expect from an RPG, but it is so good. I guess if you had played a Valkyrie Profile game, you probably understand why they picked this style of music. It totally fits with the series. The combat and the abilities in the game are actually not that difficult to pull off. It's also incredibly fun once you have gained certain abilities. You can block, counter, parry, roll, or even just utilize the grappling system to evade attacks. You also have several different weapons to level as well as new spells that you can cast. This is also one area that is a double-edged sword. The game could be more challenging. I haven't played a game in a while where I felt I was a tad overpowered. It kind of balances out toward the last chapter and final side quests, but there's definitely a section in the middle of the game where you feel too overpowered. I still thought the game was fun, but I can't get mad at anyone who finds the game a tad repetitive either. My opinion is a little mixed in regards to side quests, so they decided to recycle, like if you get a side quest from chapter 5, let's say, and then Harrier gives it to you, Well, then you're going to go back to chapter 5 and they're going to recycle that area all over again, except for they're going to throw a couple of waves of enemies and there might be a scene with a very brief dialogue. Now, one plus I will say with all of the side quests, which this is the part I like, it's very direct, it's very straight to the point, and once you finish it, you're going to get some kind of item, you're going to get an ability, and that's all good and fine. But unfortunately, there's no voice track when all of this is going down, so, and they're usually brief anyways, so I guess it's okay for them to kind of skirt this part. So that means you're just reading text, the character will talk to you for a little bit, and then you go out, you kill a couple of waves. Whatever the reason for doing the side quest, it'll conclude, and then there's a chest, you get your goodies, and then you leave, and that's it. And I mean, so some of these can be completed in like 5 minutes, some of them 10 minutes, and there is difficulties to them. So there will be some with higher star ratings, and I mean, they are going to be a little bit more challenging. But that's the good part. I do like that they're short, sweet, and to the point. So at this point in the video, I'm pretty sure the diehard Valkyrie fans want to know how much different this is from some of the other games. And I'll be honest with you right now, this does not feel like an RPG to me. There is RPG elements, but let's be frank here. That's been like a staple in just every video game for years now. So leveling doesn't make it an RPG. Having to get gear doesn't make it an RPG to me. It really doesn't. Now every game has that. Action games have that. So to me, this 100% feels more like a hack and slash. It 100% feels more like an action game. That's not necessarily a bad thing though. I feel like the gameplay and the mechanics and everything runs tight. But this is definitely way different from how I remember Valkyrie Profile. I remember having to be strategic with my time, and then if you'd use so many points if you went back to base, or you would use so many points if you decided to go to a deceased warrior. And I remember just having to be strategic with that. If you're a hardcore Valkyrie Profile fan and you were excited about this, I get it. I can totally understand why this game would be a disappointment to you. It's also a game that has a much more streamlined and simplified story. I actually don't think it's a quote-unquote bad story. I just think it's missing some of the nuances and intricacies that made the original compelling. This just seems like a much more condensed version of the story. I think it's also important to acknowledge that this is a series that hasn't been touched since the Nintendo DS. So I really wasn't expecting it to be a throwback to what I remembered. They brought this series back to attempt something different. I will be honest, it's not a bad game. In fact, I would say I enjoyed it. I just know that this isn't what most diehard fans wanted, and the average person will pick a more polished and higher budget action game over this. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Please leave your thoughts down in the comments section below. Let me know what you think. Have you ever heard of Valkyrie Profile? And if you have, are you going to play this game? Have you already played this game? I know I'm a little late with this video, so it is a possibility that a lot of people have already checked it out, that wanted to check it out. Thank you for watching the video to the very end, and I'll see you next time.
So we meet again.
You.
Is she another Valkyrie?
Oh, you have another Enharrier. You have done well to find them with Midgard in such disarray.
Hey, so is it me, or does this character look like another Square Enix character, or am I just imagining things? Okay, they have different voices. Okay, maybe I'm imagining things. It's okay.